Utilizing aircraft technology that had matured during World War II, nations were able to project substantial air power against adversaries worldwide. This significant development not only altered the conflict's equilibrium but also enabled the ever-growing storage capacity of new American carriers to facilitate the development of other specialized platforms. The global conflict was drawing to a close and a technological revolution of unprecedented scope was about to commence, paving the way for all new purpose-built aircraft. The Grumman S2 Tracker, the first aircraft specifically engineered for anti-submarine warfare, is introduced. The anti-submarine warfare aircraft, which was equipped with formidable firepower despite its relatively conventional design, was introduced into operational service with the United States Navy in the early 1950s. The S2 Tracker, which was designed, engineered, and produced during a period in which carriers had assumed the role of the spearhead of naval operations from battleships, became a national symbol of adaptability and resilience. Subsequently, the S2 Tracker earned a reputation as the most capable and adaptable submarine hunter in the seven seas as it fulfilled numerous functions during its tenure. To understand why the S2 Tracker was born, you have to transport yourself back to the anxious years following World War II. The world had split into two ideological camps, and a new kind of conflict, a Cold War, had begun. The primary threat to the United States and its NATO allies wasn't a land invasion of Europe, but a silent, invisible menace lurking beneath the waves, the Soviet submarine fleet. Drawing lessons from the devastating effectiveness of German U-boats in two world wars, the Soviet Union had invested massively in its underwater forces. These new submarines were faster, quieter, and could stay submerged for longer than their predecessors. More terrifyingly, they were on the verge of carrying nuclear-tipped torpedoes and missiles. The thought of a Soviet sub popping up off the coast of New York or trailing an American carrier battle group was the stuff of nightmares for naval planners. The strategic shipping lanes connecting North America to Europe, the lifeline of NATO, were terrifyingly vulnerable. The U.S. Navy knew it needed a dedicated carrier-based anti-submarine warfare ASW aircraft. Its first attempt was a fascinating but deeply flawed machine, the Grumman AF Guardian. Entering service in 1950, the Guardian was an innovative concept that suffered from a crippling operational handicap. It was a two-plane system. The mission required a hunter-killer team. One aircraft, the AF-2W Hunter Z, was packed with detection gear, most notably a large ventral radome. Its job was to find the sub. Its partner, the AF-2S Killer, was stripped of the heavy sensors and instead carried the weapon's torpedoes and depth charges to destroy the target. While a clever idea on paper, it was a logistical nightmare in practice. It required two aircraft, two crews, and two precious parking spots on the already crowded deck of a carrier. Coordinating the two planes was a complex dance, and if one of them had a mechanical issue, the entire mission was compromised. To make matters worse, the Guardian was a notoriously difficult aircraft to fly with poor handling characteristics at the low speeds required for sub-hunting. Operating from the smaller escort carriers of the day, it suffered an alarmingly high accident rate. The Navy needed something better. It needed a single integrated platform that could do it all: hunt and kill. On June 30, 1950, the Navy awarded a contract to a company that had built its reputation on making aircraft tough enough to withstand anything the sea could throw at them, the Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation. Grumman's internal design model G89 was precisely what the Navy was looking for. It was a high-wing monoplane powered by two reliable radial engines with enough space in its fuselage for a four-person crew and a full suite of cutting-edge detection gear and a weapons bay. It would be the complete ASW package in a single airframe. Grumman produced two prototypes designated XS2F1, and the first one took to the skies on December 4, 1952. The test flights proved the design was fundamentally sound. It was stable, reliable, and capable By February 1954, the new aircraft, now officially the S-2F Tracker, entered operational service with Squadron VS-26. The era of the Tracker had begun. It quickly replaced the cumbersome Guardian system, solving its predecessor's problems and setting a new standard for naval ASW that would last for decades. The S-2 Tracker was a masterclass in purpose-built design. Every line, every component, every system was engineered with one mission in mind: finding and destroying submarines in the open ocean day or night in any weather, all while operating from a moving, pitching, rolling runway just a few hundred feet long. It was the embodiment of the Grumman Iron Works philosophy: make it strong, make it simple, and make it work. At the core of the Tracker's identity were its two Wright R1820 Cyclone 9-cylinder radial engines, each churning out 1,525 horsepower. In an age when sleek jet fighters were beginning to dominate the skies, Grumman's choice of old-school piston engines was deliberate. For the long, slow, low-altitude patrols of ASW, fuel efficiency and reliability were far more important than raw speed. These engines were legendary for their durability. They were air-cooled, meaning they didn't require a complex and vulnerable liquid cooling system. The sound they produced was unforgettable. A deep, throaty, unsynchronized roar that became the soundtrack of ASW operations for a generation of sailors. They were cantankerous, known for leaking oil and belching smoke on startup, but they were trusted. The redundancy of a twin-engine design was a critical safety feature for crews flying hundreds of miles from land. If one engine failed, the other was powerful enough to get the aircraft and its crew home safely. The Tracker's most prominent feature was its high-wing monoplane layout. This design offered two key advantages. First, it provided the pilots with excellent downward visibility, essential for visually spotting a periscope, a snorkel mast, or the wake of a submerged sub. Second, it contributed to the aircraft's exceptional stability at low speeds, enabling it to loiter over a search area for hours. But the true genius of the wings lay in their ability to fold. With a wingspan of nearly 73 feet, an operational Tracker was a large aircraft. On the steel island of an aircraft carrier where every square inch is priceless real estate, this was unacceptable. Grumman engineered a robust hydraulic system that allowed the wings to fold up and back, laying them nearly flat over the fuselage. This elegant piece of mechanical origami dramatically reduced the aircraft's footprint, allowing more S2s to be crammed onto the flight deck and hangar bay. What truly set the S2 apart was the incredible suite of detection systems packed into its airframe. The crew of 4, a pilot, a co-pilot, and 2 systems operators in the rear cabin, worked in concert to operate a symphony of sensors designed to find a metal tube hiding in the vastness of the ocean. The radar housed in a retractable radome under the fuselage, this search radar was the Tracker's first line of detection. The radome could be lowered 30 inches below the aircraft during a mission to scan the ocean surface for surface submarines, or the tiny signature of a periscope. It could be retracted snugly into the fuselage to prevent damage during the violent shock of a carrier landing. Extending from the aircraft's tail was a 9-foot-long stinger known as the Magnetic Anomaly Detector MAD-BOOM. This was an incredibly sensitive instrument designed to detect tiny variations in the Earth's magnetic field. A giant metal object like the steel hull of a submarine creates a detectable disturbance. To pinpoint a sub, the S2 would have to fly low and slow directly over its suspected position. A spike on the MAD operator's screen meant they had found their quarry. The real magic of the Tracker's hunt happened with Sonobuoys. These were small, expendable sonar devices dropped from tubes in the rear of the engine nacelles. Early models carried 16, while later variants could carry up to 32. There were 2 main types: passive buoys, which were essentially underwater microphones that listened for the specific acoustic signature of a submarine's propellers, and machinery and active buoys, which emitted a ping and listened for the echo much like a ship's sonar. The operators in the back of the tracker would listen to the signals transmitted from the buoys, analyzing the sounds to detect, classify, and track the target. Early S2s featured a dorsal pod with electronic support measures antennas to listen for electronic emissions from a sub. They also had a sniffer that could detect diesel exhaust particles, a telltale sign of a non-nuclear submarine running its engines on a snorkel just below the surface to recharge its batteries. Later models moved the ESM antennas to more effective rounded pods on the wingtips. The eye in the night, mounted on the starboard wing, was a powerful 70 million candle power searchlight. It could turn night into day, used to illuminate a suspected contact on the surface or to aid in search and rescue operations. The S2 Tracker can also carry a diverse arsenal of weapons. Once a target was found and identified, it had the means to destroy it. Its internal weapons bay was cavernous for an aircraft of its size. It could carry two lightweight homing torpedoes like the MK-44 or MK-46 that could be dropped into the water to hunt the sub on their own. Alternatively, it could carry conventional depth charges. More ominously, in the high-stakes reality of the Cold War, that bay could hold a single nuclear depth charge, a weapon of last resort designed to guarantee a kill. 6 hardpoints under the wings provided even more flexibility. They could carry additional torpedoes, pods of high-velocity aircraft rockets, or Zunis for attacking surface targets, or more depth charges. This gave the Tracker a formidable maximum payload of 4,800 pounds and allowed mission planners to tailor the aircraft's loadout for any conceivable scenario. What do you think a day on S2 would be like? Life for a Tracker and its crew was a cycle of intense, high-stakes activity punctuated by the unique routines of carrier aviation. A typical mission was a testament to training teamwork and raw courage. The day would begin long before dawn in the squadron's ready room deep within the steel confines of the carrier. The 4-man crew would gather for a detailed briefing on weather intelligence reports of Soviet submarine activity and their specific patrol sector. The mood was professional focused. They were heading out into the empty ocean, often alone, to be the first line of defense for the entire battle group. Out on the flight deck, the aircraft itself would be undergoing its own preparations. Plane captains and maintenance crews swarmed over it, checking fluid levels, control surfaces, and electronics. The Wright Cyclone engines would be coaxed to live sputtering and coughing thick blue smoke before settling into their signature rumbling idle. When it was time to go, the aircraft would taxi to one of the carrier's powerful steam catapults. The pilot would give a final thumbs up, the engines would be run up to full power, and for a few heart-stopping seconds, the S2 would strain against the catapult's holdback bar, shaking and roaring. Then with a violent, gut-wrenching jolt, the catapult would fire. The aircraft was flung from the deck, accelerating from 0 to over 100 knots in less than 2 seconds. Once airborne and climbing away from the carrier, the mission began in earnest. The co-pilot handled navigation and communication, while the pilot flew the aircraft. In the back, the 2 operators powered up their gear. The radar operator lowered the radar and began his meticulous scan of the ocean surface. The acoustic operator prepared his Sonobuoys. The hours would crawl by in a state of heightened awareness. They flew low and slow, sometimes just a few hundred feet above the waves in long prescribed search patterns. It was often hours of monotony, the endless blue-gray sea stretching to the horizon, the constant drone of the engines a hypnotic backdrop. Upon the initial detection of a potential target, the responsible operator would declare contact. This declaration served as the trigger for the entire crew to shift from a passive search state to an active engagement procedure. The period of monotony was replaced by heightened operational awareness as all 4 members began to execute their coordinated tasks to prosecute the contact. The pilots would maneuver the aircraft based on the operator's instructions. A pattern of Sonobuoys would be dropped to triangulate the submarine's position and course. The Madboom would be deployed for a low-level pass to confirm the target. After hours on station, their fuel running low, it was time to return to the boat. Finding a moving airfield in the middle of the ocean was a challenge in itself, but landing on it was the ultimate test of a naval aviator's skill. The approach was a precision maneuver lining up perfectly with the pitching deck, maintaining a precise speed and angle of descent. The landing itself has been accurately described as a controlled crash. The goal was not to flare for a gentle touchdown, but to fly the aircraft firmly onto the deck in the target zone to catch one of 4 arresting wires with its tail hook. The deceleration was brutal, slamming the crew forward in their harnesses as the aircraft went from over 100 knots to a dead stop in a matter of feet. Only then, with the engine spooled down and the wings being folded, could the crew finally breathe a sigh of relief. This cycle was repeated thousands of times. Over its 32-year career with the U.S. Navy, the Tracker fleet amassed over 6 million flight hours and performed nearly 750,000 of these terrifying arrested landings. Its safety record was astonishingly good, with a mishap rate of just 0.69 per 10,000 flight hours, a testament to its rugged design and the skill of those who flew and maintained it. The S2 Tracker's reliability and effectiveness were not secrets kept by the U.S. Navy. Its reputation as a premier ASW platform made it a highly sought-after aircraft for allied nations around the globe. The S2 became a global guardian, serving in the naval forces of no fewer than 14 other countries. Canada was a major operator, with de Havilland Canada building 99 trackers under license as the CS2F. These aircraft operated from the carrier HMCS Bonaventure and from shore bases, keeping a watchful eye over the vital North Atlantic sea lanes. The Royal Australian Navy flew S2E and S2G models from 1967 to 1984, operating them from both land and their carrier HMAS Melbourne to patrol the vast Pacific and Indian Oceans. The list of operators reads like a map of Cold War maritime alliances: Brazil, Italy, Japan, the Netherlands, Peru, South Korea, Taiwan, Thailand, Turkey, Uruguay, and Venezuela. All flew the Tracker, adapting it to their own unique operational needs. During the Vietnam War, the Tracker's role evolved. While ASW patrols continued, the aircraft found a new mission in Operation Market Time. Flying from carriers on Yankee Station, S2s conducted extensive coastal surveillance along the Vietnamese coastline. Their ability to fly low and slow for long periods, combined with their powerful searchlight and sensors, made them ideal for interdicting the small boats, junks, and sampans used by North Vietnam to transport weapons and supplies to forces in the south. The Tracker's versatility even extended to the space race. In the era of capsule-based spaceflight, U.S. Navy carriers were the primary recovery vessels for returning NASA astronauts. S2 Trackers, often part of the Carrier Anti-Submarine Air Group's CVSGs, would be among the first aircraft on the scene, using their excellent visibility and loitering capability to locate the spacecraft in the water and coordinate recovery efforts. The last operational USN Tracker Squadron, VS-37, flying the final S2G variant, was decommissioned in 1976. The jet-powered, more technologically advanced Lockheed S-3 Viking was taking over the ASW role. But for the Tracker, retirement from American service was far from the end of its story. For many airframes, it was merely the beginning of a new chapter, and for its operators in one South American nation, its most intense combat test was yet to come. In the spring of 1982, the S2 Tracker was thrust from the theoretical cat-and-mouse games of the Cold War into the heart of a hot conventional naval conflict. When Argentina invaded the British-held Falkland Islands, or Islas Malvinas, the Argentine Navy's Escuadrilla Aeronaval Anti-Submarine Flying refurbished ex-US Navy S2E Trackers was called to action. Initially, the 5 trackers of Squadron EA-2S operated from the deck of Argentina's only aircraft carrier, the ARA 25 de Mayo. As the British task force steamed south to retake the islands, the trackers were instrumental. Their long-range patrols were the first to detect the approaching British fleet, providing crucial intelligence to the Argentine High Command. More importantly, they were tasked with hunting for the most feared assets in the British arsenal, their nuclear-powered attack submarines. The Royal Navy submarines HMS Conqueror, Spartan, and Splendid were known to be operating in the area, and their mission was to sink Argentine naval vessels. The Argentine trackers flew relentless ASW patrols, dropping Sonobuoys and scanning with their mad gear in a desperate bid to locate and neutralize this underwater threat. The dynamic of the war changed dramatically on May 2, 1982, when HMS Conqueror torpedoed and sank the Argentine cruiser ARA General Belgrano. The loss of the cruiser, with over 300 lives, prompted the Argentine Navy to withdraw its surface fleet, including the carrier 25 de Mayo, to the safety of coastal waters. The risk of losing their carrier to a British submarine was deemed too great. But this did not end the trackers' war. The S2Es were shifted to mainland air bases from which they continued to fly long-range maritime patrol and ASW missions over the South Atlantic. While they never scored a confirmed kill against a British submarine, their constant presence was a major psychological factor. The British knew they were being hunted, forcing their submarines to operate with greater caution and restricting their freedom of movement. The humble piston-engined S2 proved that even in the age of jets and nuclear power, it was still a potent and respected adversary. As the S2 Tracker was being phased out of military service in the US and Canada during the 1970s, forestry services across North America were facing a growing challenge with increasingly destructive wildfires. They were struggling to fight these fires using aging fleets of converted World War II-era bombers such as the B-17 Flying Fortress and A-26 Invader. Maintaining these older aircraft had become both difficult and expensive. A new solution was needed, and a few forward-thinking individuals saw potential in the surplus S2s. The Tracker had all the right qualities: a rugged, reliable airframe built to withstand immense stress, excellent low-speed handling, and a large internal bay perfect for holding something other than torpedoes. The California Department of Forestry, later CAL FIRE, became a pioneer, acquiring its first batch of S2A trackers in 1972. They began converting them for the 1973 fire season. The complex ASW gear was stripped out, saving thousands of pounds of weight. The ventral radome and mad boom were fared over. In place of the weapons bay, a large tank for fire retardant was installed. During the same time, a business in Canada known as Conair, which was run by the visionary Barry Marsden, also acquired a fleet of surplus trackers. A similar strategy was adopted by their modified aircraft, which they dubbed Firecats, and they installed a retardant tank that had 3,296 liters in capacity. 1978 was the year that saw the introduction of the very first Firecat, which went on to become an incredible hit. However, the true revolution did not occur until the late 1980s. An initiative to re-engineer their fleet with contemporary turboprops was launched by CAL FIRE after the organization became aware of the constraints posed by the aging piston engines. Marsh Aviation in Arizona was responsible for the adaptations, which consisted of replacing the Wright Cyclones with Garrett TPE 331 turbine engines that were both powerful and efficient. These engines were used to drive new 5-bladed propellers. As a consequence, the S2T turbo tracker was created. There was a remarkable improvement in performance. In addition to being quicker and more agile, the S2T was also capable of climbing out of the steep and hazardous gorges where wildfires frequently burn as quickly as possible. The term initial attack refers to the technique of hitting a new fire hard and fast before it can grow into an uncontrollable monster. This equipment became the ideal instrument for initial attack. It would only take a few minutes for the S2T to become airborne and over a fresh fire thanks to its capacity of 1,200 gallons of retardant. An iconic and reassuring image of the fight against wildfires in the American West is the sight of a white and red CAL FIRE S2T screaming low over a ridge to dump a precise line of red retardant. This image describes the struggle against wildfires in the American West. A unique second calling had been discovered by the tracker, which required it to switch from its previous job as a protector of the oceans to that of a protector of the forests. In spite of the fact that the majority of trackers around the world were either retiring or being transformed into firefighters, one nation was adamant about keeping them in the military. Despite the passage of several decades since the Falklands War, the Argentine Navy continued to operate the S2. This decision was motivated by a combination of operational importance and ongoing economic difficulties. The original right radial engines were becoming a headache to maintain, and a fatal accident that occurred in 1990 and was ascribed to engine failure was the final straw. Argentina took a courageous step and decided to modernize the fleet that it still possessed. Just like the firefighters in California, they replaced the old piston engines with powerful Allied signal TPE-331 turboprops, transforming their S2Es into S2T turbo trackers. The upgrade also included a new, more capable Bendix radar and a modern suite of digital Sonobuoys processors and MAD equipment. Argentina's plans to acquire more modern maritime patrol aircraft like surplus U.S. Navy S-3 Vikings or P-3 Orions were repeatedly stalled by budget crises. In this environment, the upgraded S-2T became indispensable. Even without an aircraft carrier, the 25 de Mayo was decommissioned in 1988. The trackers maintained their naval aviation skills through cross-decking exercises, practicing landings and takeoffs from the carriers of the U.S. and Brazilian navies during joint maneuvers. The challenge of keeping these vintage airframes flying grew with each passing year. Spare parts became critically scarce. Yet the dedication of the Argentine naval aviation technicians was extraordinary. In a story of incredible resilience, they managed to return aircraft 2 AS-23 to active service on July 11, 2023. The aircraft had been grounded for months due to a lack of parts, but through sheer ingenuity and hard work, it was made airworthy again an astonishing 73 years after the S2 type first flew. Today, the Argentine Navy's S2T turbo tracker is the only example of the aircraft still in active military service anywhere in the world. It serves as a cost-effective platform for coastal surveillance and maritime patrol, filling a critical capability gap until its long-awaited replacements finally arrive. It is a living, flying testament to the durability of Grumman's original design. The Grumman S2 Tracker undoubtedly stands as one of naval aviation's most successful aircraft, transforming anti-submarine warfare during the Cold War era. Throughout its remarkable 32-year service life, this versatile platform proved its worth with over 6 million flight hours and nearly 750,000 arrested carrier landings. Few military aircraft have demonstrated such extraordinary adaptability. The tracker effectively consolidated the two aircraft Guardian system into a single efficient platform capable of both detecting and attacking submarines. This consolidation, coupled with its impressive safety record of just 0.69 mishaps per 10,000 flight hours, made the S2 particularly valuable for carrier operations where space and safety remained paramount concerns. Technical innovations further distinguished the tracker from its contemporaries. The combination of twin right cyclone engines, folding wings, comprehensive detection systems, and substantial weapons capacity created an aircraft uniquely suited for its specialized mission. In addition, the configuration of its crew consisted of 4 individuals, which combined to maximize operating performance while preserving efficiency. The tracker had an impact on naval forces in at least 13 different countries throughout the world, in addition to its service in the United States military. As a result, its impact on maritime patrol strategies and anti-submarine doctrine extended well beyond the borders of the United States. Subsequently, when the time came for the military to finally retire, these dependable aircraft were repurposed into firefighting platforms, taking the place of obsolete excess aircraft from World War II in the forestry services of both the United States and Canada. The legacy of the Grumman S2 Tracker extends beyond the limitations of its initial mission. This unique aircraft is a prime example of the highest level of purpose-built design adaptability, as it has been used for anything from hunting Soviet submarines during tense confrontations during the Cold War to fighting wildfires decades and decades later. Despite the fact that it has been supplanted by more advanced technologies in naval duty, the Tracker services to maritime security and its second life defending forests from the destruction caused by wildfires have cemented its position as an outstanding aircraft in the annals of aviation history.